What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Crypto Wolf. Welcome back. So today, real quick, I just wanted to show you something that popped up on the charts, and I've been paying a lot of attention to this lately. And you can kind of see it in the thumbnail here with the Market Cipher B. So let's just jump right over here and get into it. So I've been seeing this pop up a lot, I don't know, since the last year that I've been noticing and paying attention to it and seeing it pop up every now and then. And I've been trying to figure out whether there's some standardization to it, whether it happens a certain way every single time or if it doesn't. And I basically narrowed it down to like two possibilities. And what it is this momentum wave right here. So I see this all the time where we get a dip in the price, momentum wave comes down, generally about to the bottom, and then we start coming back up, and it might have one hump, it might have two humps, sometimes it even has three humps. And then despite the fact that momentum's coming back up, oftentimes money flow's still coming down. So I'm like, all right, I'm skeptical, as long as money flow's coming down, I'm skeptical that the price is going to bounce back up. And almost more times than not, the momentum comes up and then it just builds and builds, and it finally just collapses under its own pressure. And money flow continued to go down. And this one I was watching here, and I saw like right here that okay, money flow kind of sort of was coming up a little bit, but not a whole heck of a lot. So I'm like, all right, price was kind of flatlining to the side here a little. I'm like trying to figure out like, all right, what's going on, what's gonna happen. And I'm like, I still got this feeling that it was probably going to go down, because it really wasn't making much of an arc back to the upside. It was still generally kind of coming down as it went sideways up on the price candles. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to pay attention and watch. Not to mention the VWAP was hanging out above the zero line for a little while. I'm like, it's bound to come down eventually. The VWAP's not going to hang out up in the positive area for super long. It's just, you can go back, look anywhere in the history. You might have some stints where it stays up for a little bit. Like even here, it stayed up for a little bit, but that was when money flow was coming up in the green. While money flow is deep down in the red, and you get this weak VWAP to the positive side, more likely than not, seems like the price is going to come back down. But what I really wanted to talk about was these breaking momentum waves where it's building up, it's building up, it's building up. Eventually it just collapses under its own weight, and it takes a dip back down. And as you can see over here on the price, that's exactly what happened. It took a dip back down. And so I've been going back and looking at a lot of these, and I snapshotted a bunch of previous examples of this happening, and it happens across all time frames. And let me bring this up here. So all right, you can kind of see this one is the one that we are currently in, except it was a little bit ago. It's gotten a little bit deeper now, but go to the next one here. So all right, this one was an interesting one, and this one, it actually happened a couple times. So you kind of look over here on the left, which you can't really see my cursor over top of it, but you can see where my little vertical bar is. So starting over here on the left, you can see where we took a dip to the downside, and then it was coming up, coming up. In this case, we had three more waves, which oftentimes it tends to have three. And sometimes you'll even get like a little, almost like a little trigger wave type deal to the positive side with the momentum waves. But as you look, money flow was still coming down all throughout that momentum wave, building back up and up and up and up. And sure enough, right here, it collapsed back down, took another dip. And even though money flow was coming back up, had another wave here, another wave here, another wave here, despite that, the entire time the momentum was climbing back up, the price was still dipping down. And sure enough, it collapsed once again. And then we had another big momentum wave to the downside, the one with the four green dots over there on the right. And of course, the entire time, money flowed deep into the red. And you can almost look at it, the money flow specifically, as one big wave, even though it had like, a little bit of a dip, a curve to the upside in the middle of it. But generally with the money waves, you're kind of looking at just averaging all that oscillation out and drawing like a nice smooth curve. And this one basically curved across the entire image right here, across the whole screen. Going to the next example here. Here's another one again. You know, big dip right here. Let me move this up a little bit so you can kind of see my cursor here. So big dip right here. 1 wave, 2 wave, 3 wave. This one came a little bit higher up on the positive side, but just as well ended up getting another wave where it crashed back down over here. Now, when it crashed back down on this one, it really only made it, you know, between the 50 and the 60 line, call it like 55. But on the price itself, you can see where the RSIs were super tight together, fairly steep dive. The price itself took a big dip. And it kind of proves the rule there. So even though, yeah, the momentum was trending up, and we did come up even 2 waves to the positive side. Now this one, the one that makes it kind of hard to judge for the future is you can see where the money flow was coming up. And you look at that and it's like, all right, well, so not every single time is the money flow going to continue going to the downside before you get that collapse back down. So on this one, I probably would have been a lot more cautious, because like, okay, if you were to look at it like money flows coming up, momentum waves are trending upward, you know, things generally look like, all right, you know, we're going to go back up. But then as soon as you saw the RSIs over there at the top right come close together, where it's that turns into a solid red line right there, once you see that and it's angled pretty steep to the downside, at that point I'd be like, all right, you know, it may be the last dip before we continue, you know, before we do a reversal back to the upside. But there was definitely going to be something, because you can see we started getting into the green money flow over on the right side of it. So that at that point, when you're seeing that the money flow is getting to the green and this is happening, I'd say that, you know, this is going to be the last little dip before we reverse. All right, so again, another example here. You know, dip down, kind of a half-ass wave, but then 2, 3, and then actually one more little independent wave as we were getting a couple to the top side, and then collapse back down. And in this case, money flow in the red the entire time. Now, let me see, there's one here where, which one am I on here? Okay, and another example here, even though this one didn't have as many waves, but we had 2 big, you know, deep waves at the beginning. Had this third one here as the money flow is coming up, still stayed in the red, price collapsed back down. And you can see money flow actually came up quite a bit on this one, but in the price action, the price really didn't come up all that much. I didn't snap the price candles along with these, but that's what happened on that one. Now, this guy right here, I wanted to at least give an example of the exception to the rule, even though I'm not really calling it a rule, because it doesn't necessarily happen every single time. But on this one, had a big dip, you know, big momentum wave down, got the big green dot down there. You know, it hit a couple little waves as we're climbing back up. And even as we're getting those, you know, waves where we got the one in the middle here, it's like around the, I call it the 60 mark, and then another one up here around the 50. We were still coming down in the money flow, but we got such a big boost. You know, money flow came back up. We had a much bigger momentum wave over here on the right, and money flow came back to the green, and this one did not collapse. So you can't necessarily treat it like it's going to happen every single time, but it does happen. I mean, matter of fact, I could probably go to just about any time frame. Whoops. Start scrolling backward, and I could find an example. It's like right here on the 1 hour. This one, not the greatest, but was coming up. Didn't even make it, but I mean, this money flow is just gigantic to the red, but kind of collapsed back down early. Let's see here. See if we can find a better one. No, not really. No, no big dip. This one's kind of similar, but not really. It's stretched out a lot further. We start climbing up, but really didn't have much of a collapse. I'd call that just normal price action right there. Again, this one's a little bit weaker, but you know, didn't dip all the way down, but it came down, wave, 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 half collapse, final collapse, where it just coming back up, falls. Again, bit of a weak one, but also it's a good example of, you know, if you start to see something like that where momentum is trending back up, if the money flow is still looking like crap, it's probably a safer bet than not that it's going to collapse back down. And looking at our current predicament, let's go to 15. We don't give the 15 enough love. Well, okay, for the sake of the example that we're doing, we'll go a smaller time frame because this is not as drawn out. But you know, dip, bump, 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 one last bump, just barely does a little trigger, barely a little trigger to the upside, and boom. But anyway, so looking at where we're at right now, oh yeah, let's go to the 8-minute. I generally try not to go too far below that. Obviously, money flows deep in the booty. Getting a little bit of you know, 20s action on the DBSI. But the way it's playing out, I'm not super optimistic about a big rebound just yet. I mean, if we started seeing like 5, 6, 7 candles where it was in the 20s, I'd be like, yeah, you know, it might be worth trying to play a little upswing. But you know, we do have, and this is probably the most important part. Kind of makes me want to do something, honestly. We do have a bullish divergence going. You know, with our little collapse wave right there, that did make a bullish divergence. So, you know, if you catch this video in time, I'm not telling you to do anything or what to do, but it's generally the kind of shit you're looking for. Just saying. But before making any kind of decision, that's on an 8-minute. Obviously showed up on the 15. Still a little early on the 30 though. And looking over here at the DBSI, whoops. It looks bearish over here. Once you get up to this 30-minute, it's looking pretty bearish. So if you are going to try to catch anything to the upside, I'd say be in and out. Slide in and out and bounce. We got on the 1 hour. Obviously money flow low. RSI hasn't reached the bottom yet, so there's still some room there. Interestingly, at the very bottom of the momentum wave, you know, we got a VWAP cross to the downside, caught a little red dot. You know, got the yellow X on the current candle. It's very possible, and I almost forgot to, shit, I should have mentioned this earlier, but drew out this pattern the other day, and it's not really accurate or anything, but I mean, it generally has that shape. And I drew it when we were like way back here, so I wasn't really being super precise about it or anything. But now that it's here, we could probably adjust this a little bit. Now it's a little bit more realistic. And if that's the case, this very well could be a breakout to the downside. Now remember, if it is a breakout to the downside, at some point you're going to want to watch for a retest, potentially a fake out. So, you know, you may not want to go, you know, whole ham on taking a big short position just yet. Just throwing it out there. I mean, not saying that it's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, DBSI going from 7 to 13, it's over here on the 4-hour, I'd say it's looking pretty strong to the bearishness. I'd say the bears are looking bully. Look at that. RSI's coming back together, pointed to the downside. Super bearish. Money flow still pointed down, super bearish. VWAP, not a up bone in its body. Momentum, still room, still pointed down. I mean, I don't know. It seemed like it may be a bearish Monday, so we'll see what happens. But all right, I'm gonna cut this short. I wasn't trying to make anything super long. Let me know what you think about the collapsing momentum wave. Is it something you've noticed? Do you pay attention to it? Have you noticed certain times where it plays out and sometimes it doesn't? Feel free to let me know. Otherwise, gentlemen, remember, get your shit together, keep being a badass, and keep coming back. Got some other stuff coming up here, especially branching into a little bit more of the, you know, be a better man type stuff. Not necessarily, well, I'll leave it at that for now. Keep coming back. I think you'll like it, especially all my fellas out there. So, you know, we gotta take over the culture, take the culture back a little bit. You know, they let some of this craziness get too far, and it's not looking good. So, gotta be strong in these days, fellas. All right, later.